Hey, this is Brian Elaine from CrowdScribed, and this is 6.5 Questions with Karen Spears Zacharias. Karen is the author of a handful of books, including A Silence of Mockingbirds, Will Jesus Buy Me a Double Wide, and her most recent book, which is a novel called Mother of Rain. Karen, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. But really, 6.5 questions?
Yes, you'll see.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Question number one. Before we talk about your books, let's talk about writing. What are your ideal writing conditions?
Um, well, because I have a background in journalism, I think quiet is my idea because, I worked in a cubicle in a newsroom for so long
Okay.
that my kids know or knew when they were growing up that if I was writing at home, it had to be absolutely quiet. So I have a lot of voices in my head, which probably has nothing to do with writing, but I need it to be quiet so I can pay attention to them.
All right, question number two. Most of your books are of the nonfiction variety. I think you've written 5 nonfiction books. What part of writing a nonfiction book gives you the most energy?
Gives me energy. You're assuming that writing.
Is there any, let me rephrase that. Is there any part of writing a nonfiction book that gives you energy?
Uh, no,
No.
actually, I can't think of anything about writing nonfiction that gives me energy.
Wow, that's
What it
interesting.
does is because I really am an emotive writer in many ways, both fiction and nonfiction. So while my journalism demands that I be a truth teller, that takes emotional energy. So I usually come away from all of my books completely and emotionally exhausted.
Hmm. All right, well, question number three. This was your first novel that you've published. Is this the first novel you've attempted to write?
No, it's not the first one I attempted to write. Certainly have played around with short stories and novel writing prior and leading in. I'd written one short story prior, just a fun piece I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So the opportunity to be creative, to delve into something, but it was the one novel that would not let go of me.
Hmm. Okay, question number four. Have you ever experienced writer's block? And if so, how have you dealt with it? Or do you not believe that it exists?
I think my journalism training tells me that writer's block is just avoidance, because I really do not believe in writer's block. You try going into a newsroom one day and saying to your boss, "I'm sorry, I can't get those 3 stories done. I have writer's block today."
Yeah, that's a good point.
It never, ever works that way in a newsroom. So my training in journalism did not allow me to take that approach to writing. I believe if you sit in front of a computer and write every day, there's no such thing as writer's block. Having said that, though, I will emphasize that this past year, I've done some of the least amount of writing of my writing career. I don't consider that writer's block. It's not for a lack of ideas, but for a lack of emotional energy. I lost my mother last Christmas.
Sorry.
And so the year after you lose someone that you're that close to, I just don't have the kind of emotive energy that I require to write.
Question number five. Of the last 10 books that you've purchased, how many were digital versus print?
Of the last 10 books,
Hmm.
one was digital, all the rest have been print.
Okay. Do you feel like that's always going to be that way for you?
Yeah, I think if you could see around my office, you can't see the books on the floor, around this office right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much a traditionalist in all sorts of way about my own publishing, about reading and writing. The problem for me with digital is that it's so transient. It's always changing.
Yeah.
And so I think back, I was thinking the other day about interview I did with a World War II vet the year before he died. He had been at Pearl Harbor, he had been at Guadalcanal, and I did those interviews. And at the time I did those interviews, the tapes that we used were those little tiny, like answering machine tapes,
Yeah.
the little small tapes.
Yeah.
Well, I have those tapes still, but I can't plug them into anything and listen to them now. So that's a very transient thing for me to, I have some video of my own father that was taking on an 8 millimeter. Well, we don't have 8 millimeters anymore. So that's transient. A book is never transient that way. The books that I save that are mine, I will hand down to my children. They will hand them down to their children, who hopefully will hand them down. So a book doesn't change like that.
All right, question number 6. I'm sure there are folks watching this right now who would love to have one of their own books published. Maybe they feel like they've got a book in them that they've never actually sat down to write. What's a specific piece of advice that you can give them to get started?
The thing I tell everybody is this: you write 1 page a day, just one. Whether you work a full-time job, whether you work 6 part-time jobs, everybody can find an hour a day to sit down and write 1 page. Now, some days you'll get maybe 5 sentences written, and some days you'll write 4 pages.
Yeah.
But you write the 1 page a day, and at the end of the year, you have a manuscript, a draft.
Yeah.
It's not finished, but you have a draft.
Yeah. All right, finally, last question, question number 7. How many cups of coffee do you drink on the average day?
Is this that 6.5 question?
It is. It's a half question because it's a little silly, but or maybe not.
On the average, I probably drink about 3 cups a day.
Okay.
So,
And are you okay with that? You feel like that's maybe a little too much?
when I'm writing, I'm usually drinking more than when I'm running around doing other things. But I do have to, I'm never going to do one of those cleanse programs where you can't have caffeine. I'm not up for that.
No. I did that about 3 years ago, and I'm actually thinking about doing it again in January, but I'm dreading it, so I don't know.
Well, and to go without coffee in January in Pennsylvania seems really cruel.
Yeah, you're right. It does. I think I just talked myself out of it. Thank you. You can find Karen online at karenzach.com, and she's also a blogger at Patheos, or some people call it Patheos. So you can find her on there as well, and her books are all on Amazon as well, of course. And to connect with readers and authors, find great books, and even publish one of your own, you can visit CrowdScribed.com. Karen, thanks so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you, Brian.